Hands-On Health was founded 21 years ago as a physical therapy clinic specializing in myofascial release. Utilizing that particular modality, Hands-On Health ended up creating a niche, almost like the Sherlock Holmes of physical therapy, where there were people that no one could figure out what was wrong with them. Their symptoms looked bizarre, or maybe they were just a very finely tuned athlete and something very subtle was wrong there and causing them a great deal of problems. So Hands-On Health then became the place where the doctors would say, no one can figure out what's wrong with you. You need to see Ann Wilkinson. You need to go to Hands-On Health. It's kind of interesting. I didn't do this on purpose at first, but the first couple classes I took as continuing education, they just so happened to be from the master of that technique, the person who created it, not a student of theirs, but them. And I started to notice that there's a particular art and style that would go along with that skill that you get from the master that sometimes you won't get from one of their protege.
Indeed.
So then after that, I very purposely made sure that when I took a class, it was with the person who created the technique. So I've been really blessed. I have not only taken the classes directly from the masters, but somehow, some way, I would get to have dinner with them or treat them or do clinics with them. Almost every single interaction, every single class that I really did get to experience that and learn a great deal outside of class by picking their brains, at dinner, by very hot topics in physical therapy. Or I'm very blessed to have been able to have that interaction with them. One-on-one, I think, might be the only way to get some of this information across. I remember watching Janet Travell, and she had guide wires. She was 89 years old, and she had guide wires holding her up when she was treating, but there was just still such a flow to what she does. John Barnes, he just has this very strong and constant, no matter what is happening with the patient, this countenance about him. The physiotherapists from Europe, Robin McKenzie and Freddie Carlton-Bourne, they kind of have an attitude. Same with Viola Fryman. And I think in some ways that gives the patient confidence in them. If they say to do something or they make an observation, it's not flimsy, or it's very, very clear and very direct. So it's been kind of fun to mentor under these kind of people. But also I'm noticing that in our profession, as the insurance companies are starting to dictate how much time the therapists have and how much they're going to pay, you see a lot less of mentoring happening. A little worried about our profession in that way. You see new graduates that are chief PTs, they're just not getting mentoring the way that we used to. And it used to almost be mandatory. Like you would take a job for half of the pay because you got to work with someone very prominent. And there was a discussion about that. That if you'll be taking this position as a new graduate, know that you won't be getting the pay that you would be getting at some of the other facilities because you're working with moi, whoever that was.
Yes.
But that's kind of disappeared. And I worry about the artistic aspect of physical therapy because there is the science and there's the art, and the two together, I think, really make that seasoned practitioner.
Indeed, and that's why there is no substitute for experience, because every case and every person is unique. You don't get that from reading a book. After all, no one learned how to...
I met Her Holiness Saima, and I was the body worker for her. And then she would suggest, I would like you to come with me here. I would like you to study with this person. I want you to meet this person. And then she had me really venturing out all over the world. And I kind of feel like it must be my dharma to go to different cultures. And like even when I'm on vacation, I'll meet with the roots doctor, the medicine woman, and then I might leave them a homeopathic kit, or I may work on them or show them some things, but there's an exchange. And I feel like that is part of the educational aspect, which I'm really developing now in my career, is to be able to take, just like music crosses cultural boundaries, everybody wants to be well, everyone wants to feel good. So how can we get the most How do we, instead of trying this and trying that and not doing that right and having a consequence and doing this weaving path, how can we get like right? How can we be able to grab this herb from this country, this exercise from that culture, this mind way of thinking from the other culture? Let's just, and Saima's been a real key with that. She really has. That's one of her missions, is to teach people how to fine-tune their bodies. So she's really helped guide me.
My goodness.
Teach people that.
Yeah, and it's a very valuable teaching. It's something that the West is catching up to. When you look at the progression of the last 20 years or so, we went from alternative medicine, where you would do something different instead of traditional, to complementary, followed after that, where people were actually doing both. But now we've matured into integrated healing. Our medical profession has learned that we need a complement of all styles brought together, just as we all dream in one language, the same language, we all need healing just the same. And that's been learned all over the world. Why ignore so many teachings that have been around for thousands of years?
I couldn't have said that better, that progression. You're right, that's fantastic. Integration, it really is. And then integrating all the aspects of ourself. And so that's why the hands-on health, the physical therapy, addressing the structure, addressing the paperwork, the documentation, the billing, those kinds of things. That's one entity. And then Amoga Life, the educational aspect, where you actually get in and teach the public to make correct choices. Instead of getting a cortisone injection, getting addicted to pain medications, having a failed surgery, and then finding the osteopathy. Yes. Let's learn about all of the possibilities. What are all of your choices? And then make an educated choice as to what to do. Not to be guided around by a nose ring, but actually to use your brain and your heart, love yourself, making a decision, to really help yourself the best. The public has to be educated, and that's where Amoga Life came in. Not only are we teaching, practitioners how to do this work, because what I've done is I've taken different techniques from these different masters and created one particular transformational bodywork approach. And like I said, it is kind of like the Sherlock Holmes approach. We're really looking at everything from the ground up in all aspects. But then actually teaching the public how to take care of their body, how to make what the therapist is doing in that 45 minutes or an hour, how to make that last a week or 2 weeks or a month before they can get to that therapist again, and gradually then also for the rest to carry on for the rest of their life. So new ways of thinking, new ways of eating, new ways of being in the world, new ways of seeing their particular dilemma. Because basically, if you're going to come to see me, you've run into some sort of a problem, obstacle, or dilemma. Let's transform that into a possibility, a hurdle that we're going to jump, and we're going to move to the next level. Just an expansion, an increase of awareness about yourself. People think they were born with a bad knee or a bad colon or a bad immune system, and that's not really true. We can actually go in and fine-tune these systems and create an incredibly vibrant and working being.
And you have different ways of finding what is the right therapy. You do water therapy in the pool. You do hippotherapy, working with equine. Isn't that true? You have a wide range of
There's going to be different things that are going to motivate different patients. So my job is to figure out what motivates you. Now also, if you have a patient who comes in and says, whenever I am serving a tennis ball, I get this horrible pain. Well, if I have them laying on the table, that pain's not going to be recreated. I may have to go and watch them play tennis.
Yes.
And it's funny because one time I was treating a doctor and I was trying to impress him, and he had that particular symptom. So I'm working on him on the table. We're not really making any headway. 2 or 3 treatments in, I've no change. So that's when I was like, to save face, I was like, the only thing I can think of to do, this was very early in my career, was to go out and actually see him hit the ball. I noticed that he would serve the ball and then he would hit it way out in front of him when he would serve it. And I knew that was wrong. Not a great tennis player, but I knew there was something not right. I knew to get the best bang for your buck, you hit the ball when it's high up in the air. Mm. Well, then we found out that he had injured his shoulder way a long time ago. He didn't even think to tell me that. It was so long ago. And that's why he was serving this way, but it was also hurting his back. So we had to restore the shoulder so that he could serve the correct way. He wasn't going to give up tennis. And then his back didn't hurt. So this is when I say the Sherlock Holmes. You've really got to take a look to say, something's going on here. Here's a mechanical pain. It happens when he's doing something mechanical. And so far, nothing that I've done mechanical on the table has helped. Now where do we go? We have to start looking three-dimensionally. We have to start looking at, in the dynamic world. Just lying on the table to get a massage, we're not going to get there.
So therein lies the difference between just treating the symptom and looking for the cause, because sometimes the cause can be archaic. It could be archaic from an old injury, or maybe it could be even archaic emotionally too. And the adaptation, the way we adapt and have patterns and become familiar with our adaptation to whatever happened long ago, and then even after the injury is gone, we've still developed dysfunctional patterns that have to be relearned. Does that happen sometimes?
There's patients that sometimes on the table almost have like a reliving of something. Now, maybe they came to me because someone rear-ended them. But on the table, when I touch their pain, they might remember something when they were 2. There's people who even claim that they're remembering something that's a past life or that they were abducted by aliens. I'm not going to get an argument with them on the table as to whether that is, isn't, could be, couldn't be. It's really none of my business. All I know is that they have a memory and they have an emotional response. And when we look at it and deal with it in a very straightforward way, and they really take an objective look at it, and they release this emotion that it produces from their body, they're healed. So it doesn't matter to me whether who they thought was the alien might have been a brother, mother, father, or grandfather, like that. Maybe there's confusion or maybe there isn't. That's not my place. My place is to be with the patient where they are in that moment. And so when you've had an experience, whether it's a spiritual experience or an out-of-body experience or a past life experience, like no one's can tell you that it's not true. When you've had an experience, that is reality for you.
Yes.
So I ride the patient where they are. So now if I find a root cause for a patient, now my next job is to say, okay, here's the root cause of their problem. What can I do to facilitate the movement in the healing direction? And I tell you things, the horse, for instance, I had a 20-year-old girl, brought up very Christian background, was having a real hard time dating, wanted to be married, but things would get confused when men would start to, she would date them and they might want to kiss her she would start to short circuit. Like, this is a bad guy. And I said to her, well, I don't think you're going to want to marry somebody that doesn't want to kiss you. There's a balance here. And what I did for treatment for her, she was having headaches and stomach aches and a lot of problems with this. And I put her on a 2,500-pound male horse and got her to teach it, to have him stop, move forward, go in circles, down the hills, up the hills, slower, faster. And without having really any discussion about it, it kind of carried over into the way that she could kind of, guide these gentlemen so that they weren't kind of shooting themselves in the foot, but to realize that there was this balance between them being attracted to her and, any misbehavior, that really she had the reins.
So it was a feeling, perhaps a learned state of helplessness. And then she realized that she could have control, and that overrode the feelings that went way back. So it's an archaic emotion, can have just as much effect on a person as an archaic adaptation to an injury that had healed years ago. Or
belief system, or a message that we were taught that maybe served us at one time as a child. Don't go over there, don't do that, don't touch this, and now as an adult, you don't have to have those brakes on because you have experiences and things to background to make better choices. So maybe also people really love the Watsu water therapy. Like when I get people into the pool and the table's not in the way and I can move their body three-dimensionally in a lot of different ways, and joints move that we just can't seem to find a way in that 1 or 2 plane manipulations. There's patients, they cry sometimes. They say it's the most relaxing thing they have ever done in their life. And they even say sometimes they see God. It's amazing. It's, I guess, being in the water, maybe being in the womb, and almost like when you come back out and you see the light, whatever. I mean, honestly, every person that I put in the pool, when they come out of that Watsu water session, they all say the same thing. And you can't really tell, because they're so relaxed. There's not really a lot of facial expression. And then they're all done and they sit up and then they just, they just come to life. Oh my God.
So when you have eclectic studies from different regions, cultures, and time, you have a tool kit, if you will, for knowing what will help the person once you discover it. And you're open to discovery too, because ironically, while we moved into being integrated in medicine, we're still having to move away from specialization. And you might have somebody that's a foot doctor or the left toe doctor, if I exaggerate a little bit, and they don't really understand that we're an integrated system throughout. But the studies that you do take that into account, and you have the methods at hand through experience when you diagnose something that this may work or be better for something else.
First of all, my toolkit is really big and heavy. I mean, it's a big one. If you look at my resume, people will look at my resume that are my peers and say, like, how did you do this? But I studied a lot. And I've had my hands on a lot of patients. And I think that, like, America's only 200 years old. There's other cultures that are 7,000 years old. So if you can open, now with the internet and travel, you can have access to all those.
Yeah.
But also specialization. I mean, everything seems to travel from one end of the spectrum to the other and then find its way in the middle. So I think maybe at one point we had jack of all trades, master of none. Now we've got specialization. Neither one of those worked. Now we need to kind of come into the middle where you've got somebody who understands the connectedness while they also understand their particular area of expertise, and then have a very good network to refer and work together. So, for instance, restorative yoga classes, meditation classes, Feldenkrais, Alexander. Once somebody's done with me, they should be going on and maybe taking horseback riding lessons or going back into playing tennis and living their life. I'd rather have them come and get with a new injury from really living than to be in my office forever and ever and ever dealing with the same thing that was never really resolved.
Yeah.
If you have somebody coming back 3 times a week for the rest of their life, then you're not getting anywhere.
It's a consigned agreement. It's like the parakeet that doesn't leave the cage if someone opens the door, because it's all it's known. And so we have to differentiate beyond our comfort zones. We have to go beyond consigned agreements. We have to unlearn learned helplessness. And when you diagnose these things and the reaction to things that are in people, you can actually get to the source. That's like when you go to look for a virus in the body, you don't actually look for the virus, you look for the antibodies. And you recognize these antibodies were caused by a virus. So when you recognize patterns in a person, does that sometimes give you an indication as to what might be the source, past or present, in something that needs healing?
Well, in that case, with a virus or a bacteria, I would tend to say, why does that want to live in your body? Is it that you have an acidity level or an alkalinity level that they're happy living in? Or is it that you have a parasitic thought process of are you allowing yourself to be taken advantage of so that a parasite would feel really comfortable in your energy space?
So there's a total biology aspect in this. And so like attracts like, there's the eternal law of action, reaction, response in the universe. So when we take all of these things into consideration, we can understand our causes a little bit more and move away from just treating the symptom, can't we?
I do a class called Bodies Work. Because your bodies, they do work. They work very, very well. And we go through a lot of different topics in this class. It's really quite wonderful about hydration and medication and caffeine and exercise and posture. And what are the things that make you work Amoga, the highest that you possibly can. And this class is a lot of fun. This class is really good because we discuss all these points. We discuss on how you can be in a way sabotaging yourself and really help where do you have a lot more control than you think you do. And the class is quite powerful and people learn a lot.
And people are ready for this kind of learning now. That's why they're coming to your class.
They're not only are they more open-minded, but they're more educated so they can handle the terminology. Where before we think people would give their power, they go to the doctor, they'll be like, I hurt here. Now they're coming in and going, I have this pain, and I'm pretty sure it was when I did this. And to me, it seems more tendinous than it does muscular. When you have people coming in and speaking to the doctor in this way, you're actually helping him quite a bit. It's a team. It's a team effort.
Indeed. So we did have healing before there was a massive use of drugs. And maybe we've gotten away from that.
Well, it's interesting. The body has several aspects. There's a biochemical part of the body. There's an electromagnetic portion of the body. There's the mind-body connection. There's, the heart, the love space of the body. All those things need to be balanced and fine-tuned and working well. But for a long time, we only focused on biochemistry. And then sometimes the overemphasis in that actually takes that body and manipulates its biochemistry to the wrong part. For instance, lupus was a disease that was a mystery for a long time. We just thought, oh, poor unlucky person got lupus. And we found out, no, unlucky person was prescribed medication on a daily basis for all of their life, from early on, and their tissues began to not recognize themselves. So we're just becoming, way more educated all around. But
Yes.
patients really they really should at this point, with all the access to information, should be able to go into their doctors informed, not passive,
Yes.
not giving their power up, but going in and making suggestions and saying what they will do and they won't do and they won't consider, and really giving their doctor direction.
So it's more of an interactive process.
It has to be. At this point, it has to be. If it's not, you could end up being a guinea pig. It could be like a crapshoot.
Well, this is the way all the sciences are going because of a critical mass of learning that eventually accumulates. Just as in physics, we realize that we're not just observers of absolute laws in nature, but that we're actually part of the process, and even observing itself changes the results. That's what they're telling us now in quantum physics. And so this goes into quantum healing, if you will, where it's an interactive process of discovering and realizing that everything affects everything else and that we're all relative in what we do.
This body is way too important. It's way too precious to have a lifetime to get a ticket to this experience on planet Earth and not to use it maximally, not to find a way to enjoy every moment, not to find a way to be able to participate in life fully with your full awareness, your full intention, and your full ability.
And with the proper understanding and healing, you can do just that.
Sometimes it just takes somebody to give you a guiding hand, this direction, come this way, yes, keep looking at me, come on, stay focused on the prize. Sometimes you just need a coach.
Indeed. And Wilkinson of Hands On Health and Amoga Life at amogalife.com. Thank you very much.